I don't know. I think it does because a wall counts as a ceiling as well, a floor on the level above. I think it counts, but I wouldn't want to test it over the top of my vertical fortress. I'd be real leery about testing something involving a potential cave-in. Now, there are advantages to cave-ins. In fact, there are cases where cave-ins can really be useful. You can excavate a large chunk of rock at one time with a cave-in. There are ways to make cave-ins beneficial. You can do cave-ins on your enemies. Properly arranged, constructed flooring holding up a big chunk of rock. Pull a lever, the constructed flooring goes away because it's on some support or such. Bang! You've just dropped a big chunk of rock on that invading dragon or that invading siege, and they're all gonna die because anything that doesn't get pancaked is gonna get dust blasted into a wall, broken bones all over the place, cats and dogs living together, total mayhem. You can use them to punch through an aquifer. You can use them to use a magma piston. You can actually, if you're careful and you do it right, you can build a magma mist machine gun. No, I'm not kidding. It involves mixing water and magma in a particular pattern above a cave-in site where where you basically are creating a floor in midair with nothing connecting it to anything. The floor caves in, lands in magma, and creates magma mist that blasts things off ledges and sets everything on fire. Cave-ins, very cautious about cave-ins. That's all I gotta say. I've lost a lot of miners to careless digging over the years. Alright. Now, temporarily, I have to tell my masons to stop making blocks so that they'll get on that whole floor making thing I want them to get onto. They'll finish up what they're doing, and they'll immediately start dropping blocks out here to create a floor. Once the flooring is connected to that center stripe, I can safely remove it. Technically, if you're very careful about how you remove it, you can remove it now. But you have to start in the middle and work backwards towards the edge, one square at a time. If, for whatever stupid reason, I were to go through here and say, oh, I'm just going to dig this whole stripe at once, what would happen is stupid Dwarf 1 would carve from over here, stupid Dwarf 2 would carve from over here, and the 3 tiles in the middle would cave in and kill people. Never, ever, ever, ever trust dwarves to do something in a particular order. Bad idea. Now already those two tiles on that center section on that bottom right, I could dig those out right now and be safe, because the flooring is connected orthogonally to the south, and the 3 tiles of the northern section of the strip are connected at the north end. Cave-ins! Everybody loves cave-ins. Except, miners and people underneath them, and me when I didn't mean to do it. At this point, our mine workers have nothing to do, and I don't really want to dig down any further just yet. So what we're going to do is, while the masonry jobs are temporarily disabled, we're going to commit them to the mining crew, or to the masonry crew, and they will move blocks just like the masons will. When speed is essential, go parallel. Yep, cave-ins is what we were covering. We're getting ready to make take advantage of an exploit in Dwarf Fortress where you can grow surface crops underground if you have exposed their plot to sun at some point. I'm actually building 4 floors, 25 squares across each. Now, it'll take a minute because they've got to run the blocks all the way in and out of the fortress here. It's a long trip. There's not really anything I can do about that for now. I don't. That's why I'm doing this in parallel. If I only have 2 masons doing it, it takes forever. Every person I can throw at it more just makes this process more quick. We also have to finish. We haven't yet finished our fisherman's shack over here on this side. We're not done yet. Okay, let's talk about how to do this exploit wrong before we get finished here. You'll notice... oh, I haven't... I gotta do something else first before I can demonstrate. Got to actually have people produce some surface crops before I can actually start farming surface crops, don't I? Floor is... oh, you were asking about the floor for the fishing shack. What we're going to do here is once the fishing shack's outer walls are constructed and anchored effectively, we're going to go back and remove one section of floor and replace it with a grate. And then they'll fish through the grate.
We need to build a freight depot.
Alright, now hopefully our carpenter has nothing better to do with his time. He'll come along here momentarily. We'll get somebody to build that depot up. We won't get to be able to take advantage of the wagons, unfortunately. And we need to have a metalsmith, so temporarily I'm going to make our carpenter into a pretend metalsmith. We don't have any forges for him to actually use, so it's not going to harm anything. Alright, and now we have a depot. Now we're going to talk about a different sort of exploit. And this exploit is all about relief supplies. Relief supplies, you might be asking? What we're going to do is we're going to invite the caravan in. Come on, guys, bring your stuff in. Throw it in our depot. Load it up. We're going to trade. Only we're going to give you nothing, and you're going to give us everything. What we're effectively going to do is wait until the caravan arrives with its goods, and then we're going to disassemble it. Here come the merchants with their goods on their pack animals. Notice I can't get the wagons in here because they can't get across the traps. But the pack animals will deliver us some goods. Technically, no, it's not an exploit. There is a cost to doing this. It's not free stuff. Well, technically it is free stuff, but it's only free stuff now. It hurts us down the road. See, the way merchants in Dwarf Fortress works is very simple. When a merchant arrives, there is a value assigned to the caravan. The value of all of its people, all of the equipment, all of their clothing, everything they brought with them, the pack animals, the wagons, everything is totaled up. And let's say, for the sake of round numbers, it's 10,000 dwarf bucks. When they make their trades and they leave the map, the value of the caravan is assessed a second time. And the net profit or loss determines how much stuff they're going to bring next time. So, for example, 10,000 dwarf bucks in, they leave with 13,000 dwarf bucks, that's a 3,000 or 30% profit. They're probably going to bring up more stuff next time than they brought this time. If, however, they arrive in the depot and we disassemble it right out from under them and confiscate everything they have and bring it downstairs and use it for ourselves, they're leaving with a profit of almost nothing. In fact, it's a huge loss. Now, a loss from the Dwarven caravan, not even really a big deal. The Dwarves always come and trade. They never get pissed. They never declare war. But if you do this with the humans or the elves, or hypothetically, it has happened, with the goblins, you will provoke a war. If not the first time, then the second or third time for sure. Because you are forcing them to leave with such a negative loss that it's basically a total loss of their entire caravan. You are responsible for the fate of every caravan that enters your map. If the goblins ambush it halfway to your depot, slaughter everybody in the caravan, and kobolds run off with the stuff, you're still responsible. You are treated as having confiscated all of those goods. It doesn't matter whether you confiscated them or the kobolds swiped them. At the end of the day, the caravan came on, and then they left. Now, the question arises, well, how do you know who you're trading with so you know whether you can accidentally confiscate their goods or not? Well, there's two ways. First off, you can find out by querying the individuals. This merchant here, I could view him and, hey, look, he's a short, sturdy creature, fond of drink and industry. That's a dwarf. Elves and humans have a different description. However, if you don't know, or you don't care, or you just want to do it in a hurry, the easiest way is actually just look at the season. Dwarves always come in autumn. Goblins, if you're getting goblin traders, come in winter, and goblin traders are incredibly rare, for the record. It happens, theoretically, it can happen, but I haven't heard of anybody doing it in a long time. Dwarves come in the autumn, goblins come in the winter, elves come in the spring, humans come in the summer. So based on the season, I know who this is. Now, there's a little bit of fuzziness. This is late autumn, depending on the timing, how long it took the wagons to get there, how long it took them to get set up. It could theoretically be winter before the dwarves actually are ready to leave. So you can get traders in a season that they're not really arriving in. You can always look at your announcements page. Over here in the announcements, you'll see, let's go back a ways here, and there's going to have to be an autumn here somewhere. Right there is autumn arriving. Shortly thereafter, we got some migrants. That's there. And then a little further on, we got merchants, and we haven't changed season yet. So I know that this is autumn that they arrived in, for example. Humans are humans. Dalesmen, if there is such a thing, is got to be a mod, probably Masterwork or Genesis. This is pure vanilla aside from DF hack and utilities, so just humans. Actually, ideally, in an ideal world where you didn't have to worry about invaders and I didn't have to worry about giant monkeys dismembering my dwarves, I would have built this trade depot in a much more exposed area and let the wagons in, because the wagons are where all the real heavy goods are, where the bulk of their goods are, and then disassembled the thing with the wagons in play. Now, if you don't want to trade or you don't want to deal with it, you don't have to build a depot. It's not essential. I've got enough stuff on hand and enough materials in this site that I don't have to trade for anything. I can make enough food to keep 100,000 dwarves fed. I can build a tree farm to get all the wood I need. I've got iron on site, and believe me, the goblins are going to bring me some more. If I've got iron, and I've got flux, and I've got a way to make fuel, I've got every metal item I could conceivably want. If I've got magma and I've got sand, I've got an infinite supply of glass items. If I've got glass and wood and metal, I have everything I need to make a fortress. God knows you're not going to run out of stone anytime soon. So, we built our depot. The dwarves have brought in their goods. As soon as they announce that they are finished unloading, which is now, we can now mark this for disassembly, and people will come along and take all this stuff. That's the good news. The bad news is, as I said, first off, it costs us. The main cost you're going to run into is that the dwarves next time, in next autumn, will bring us less stuff. Now, frankly, I don't care. Like I said, trading is not essential. But the dwarves won't ever declare war, so I can confiscate all this stuff, get a bunch of free supplies, let's call them relief supplies. Silk, cloth, bags, sand, food, anvils, iron, weapons, armor. They've unloaded all that stuff. It's sitting in my depot. All I gotta do is take it. When the elves come, I can take the stuff that I got from the dwarves that I don't care about and hand it to the elves and take some of the elves' stuff in exchange. And effectively, they've given you a second shipment of embark goods, if you will. Okay, guys, give me just a minute here. It's 1 o'clock, and I gotta step AFK for just a minute. I'll be right back. Yeah, we're not going to run too much longer. I'm going to confiscate the dwarves' goods, get our folks. I'm going to have to probably convert people to rarely here to get the goods moved indoors as quickly as possible, and then we're going to probably call it off for the evening. It's pretty late here. I've done this now for 6 hours, so now's a pretty good time to break it off. But bear with me and we'll demonstrate the process of confiscating the dwarves' goods. Okay, step 1. Mark the depot for removal. Step 2. Make sure that whatever skill it requires is available and on point. In this case, metalsmithing, and the easiest way to do that is to temporarily reassign our carpenter into metalsmithing jobs and let him do the disassembly. that's really only the first two steps. The third step is you got to get all that stuff into someplace useful. And we're going to take advantage of a trick. Here, carpenter, carpenter, carpenter. And he's asleep. Of course he is.
Winter is at hand.
And here's a case where the dwarves are still around come winter. I have heard tales, but I have never actually seen in any of my games, of people getting caravans from the goblins. Now, that might be a mod, it might have been in older versions and not in the current version, I don't know. If he wakes up and wants a drink, I'm going to get somebody else to do it. In fact, I'm going to get one of those gatherers to do it. That's who's going to do it. Bam! Depot's removed, stuff goes everywhere. Now, before you take another step, you need to consider food not in a stockpile will rot. You don't want the food to rot. You also don't want this stuff where it's left. So, how do we deal with that? Well, the easiest way is once you've removed the depot, go back and put in a stockpile right underneath the stuff. Set the stockpile to hold everything. Okay, maybe not corpses or refuse. Coins are irrelevant. There are no coins unless you make them. You probably don't care about wood. The only thing that needs to be in the stockpile is food. Everything else can be moved. So we can do this. And the food is protected from rotting by virtue of sitting on a stockpile. Yeah, well, bad news, Morn Rage. This is my 6th hour. We're about to finish up. Okay, so we've got a stockpile full of food. Now we need to make sure that this stockpile will give to the stockpile below. And now the food sitting in the stockpile that won't rot won't remain in this stockpile. And since none of the other stuff belongs in this stockpile, it's eligible for movement as soon as there's a hauler available to move it. This stuff is all effectively confiscated. We don't have to do anything else with it. Our dwarves could take advantage of it where it is. But we're going to go back at some point and get it all into its individual stockpiles. Now, at this point, I probably have gotten, some, but not much. So let's talk about how to do this exploit right and how to do this exploit wrong. You'll notice that in this stockpile, we have hide root and wild strawberries and nothing else. And both of those are surface crops. But in this farm plot over here, we have hide root and dimple cups and wild strawberries and plump helmets. And dimple cups and plump helmets are both underground crops. And hide root and wild strawberries, as mentioned previously, are surface crops. A farm that shows up with having both is usable for neither. You do not want this situation. You want to make sure that your farms are all or one or all the other. So these are underground crops, dimple cups, plump helmets. This is a surface crop. This one is a surface crop. This one is both. This one is both. These both farm plots are effectively broken. That's because they are neither suitable for above ground nor suitable for below ground. And we don't yet have the crops I really care about. Our gatherers have not yet picked the ones I really want them to get. Nope, don't want pigtails. I want rope reeds, whipvines, and sunberries. All three of which exist on this map. Whipvines and sunberries both make incredibly valuable booze. Whipvines can be ground into flour. Rope reeds can be brewed and also made into cloth. That's only part of the story. So our plant gatherers have now gathered wild strawberries and longland grass. And like I said, I'm just going to let those gatherers go nuts for a while. They need to build up their skill before they'll be able to successfully harvest one of those much rarer plants. The whipvines aren't quite as rare now as they were when we first started. You can see the light blue of the whipvines all over this area here. But the sunberries only grow in a reasonable proximity of ponds. So you don't see them other than around the ponds, basically. They don't grow out in the middle. So there's only a hand, and like rope reeds, they're also like rope reeds. A handful of them will grow on a map. You're not going to get more than a couple dozen, maybe tops, in the entire 5x5. The blue plants are fisher berries. They can be brewed or eaten. Wild strawberries can be brewed or eaten. Longland grass can be brewed or ground into flour. Sunberries are these ones that look like little lemon trees, like this one here. And we've got some prickleberries now. Prickleberries can be eaten or brewed. Prickleberries, fisherberries, wild strawberries are basically equivalent. They're not better or worse. They grow in all four seasons. They're just different colors. Value-wise, longland grass is equivalent when it's a booze to those others, but can be made into flour. Whipvines can be ground into flour or made into a more valuable booze. Sunberries can be eaten or made into an even more valuable booze. I need migrants. I've got too much stuff to do and not enough warm bodies to throw at it. That outpost liaison has been following our guy around here for like 5 minutes trying to get a meeting. There goes a farmer or a gatherer with some prickleberries in tow. The difference between farming and gathering in terms of production is that gathering can produce between 0 and I think it's 5 plants, whereas farming produces between 1 and 5. So a gatherer can actually produce nothing and just eat the plant up, basically, whereas a farmer is always going to produce something. Actually, I'm thinking that the winter here is going to be our uh, first sizable migrant wave. It's the third wave. This is when I expect the big migrant wave to hit. If not here, then definitely in the spring. We're going to like drown in migrants for the next wave or two. But that's okay. I've got lots of plans for all those people. I need a military. I need a massive hauler brigade. I need woodcutters. I got all kinds of things I need for them to do. I need to get my miners built up back to full strength, since I only have 3, since Urist McStupid dropped himself in a lake. This screen is designed for allowing you to select what goods you want to request as an import. Keep in mind, anything you request will cost more than normal because you are effectively altering the priority of that item. And unless the bug has been fixed, if you request an item, you will get up to 4 of it and no more. You're guaranteed to get some of it, which is an advantage, but there's a limit to how many they bring. I don't know if that's actually been fixed. I don't normally even mess with this screen. They're going to bring a lot of crap, and I don't need any of it. It's basically there for fill-in around the edges, variety for my food stocks. Silk cloth is nice, but other than silk cloth, there isn't anything they're going to bring me other than wood for the first year or two that I care about. And after that tree farm is up and running, I ain't even going to care about the wood, because I'm going to have the equivalent of 3 surface floors full of wood to harvest. So the caravans are basically just add-ons. The question arises whether migrants are random or do they come at certain times. You will get 1 migrant wave per season in general. That's not guaranteed. You can have migrants skip a season if you've had a bunch of deaths recently, or if the migrants are dying on their way into your fortress. A lot of times, like, for example, in evil terrain, you'll get a wave of migrants, they'll be running for the fortress, the evil dust will come, they're all husks. The next migrant wave gets eaten by husks, the migrant wave after that gets eaten by husks, and migrants stop showing up at your fortress, but you're now barricaded in by the undead. Aside from killing everyone that, arrives, basically, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a migrant wave once a season. So we're going to tell them, I don't care what you bring us, just bring us something. Our minor, tiny little masonry brigade here, our draftees, are going to finish up this last chunk of flooring, and our harvesters probably have enough skill to actually do something useful, like pick the plants I actually care about now. That's a 2. We can try it. Remember, even with a decent skill, it's not guaranteed. It's just a case of higher skill granting us more likelihood of picking the plants we care about. Okay, now hopefully somewhere in that they'll get the whip vines picked. And hopefully in that batch they'll get some sunberries and some rope reeds. Generally speaking, if they are available, rope reeds become my staple cloth product. Sunberries become my primary booze, with whipvines as a backup. And underground crops basically go completely by the wayside in favor of rock nuts becoming quarry bushes. Quarry bushes as edibles are incredibly valuable because you produce so much of them so quickly, but they require bags. Whipvines make an excellent flour and substitute booze. Sunberries make the best booze, and therefore you want your dwarves to be drinking that as much as possible, and when not, you have them drink, the other things I'll have them drink are rope reeds, which are river spirits made from rope reeds, if I have an excess, and whip wine from the whip vines that we'll harvest as well. And at that point, like I said, we'll convert all of our farm plots to dimple dye and rock nuts, quarry bushes, because that's the best food product we can get out of the underground plots, and the dimple dye for dye. This screen will indicate to you what they will pay for your exports. Now, you do want to pay some attention to this, because some of these exports you can create, and some of them you can't guarantee. Some of them are things you're not going to want to trade. Some of the things are easy to make. Here's a good example. Musical instruments are easy to make. You can actually designate them specifically to be made. So we know right away that musical instruments are going to sell for 139% of normal price. Amulets and figurines are random. You make crafts, and sometimes you get amulets, sometimes you get rings, and sometimes you get scepters. So you'll make some amulets, and at 160%, that's not too bad. And figurines are in here at 128, so those will sell too. But in reality, generally speaking, you're better off producing one type of trade good and never worrying about it. Instruments, mugs, whatever strikes your fancy. Something easy that can be made out of stone is perfect, because you're going to have more stone than you know what to do with anyway. Generally speaking, musical instruments is my go-to. I make mugs out of glass so that I get goblets, but we'll make a ton of these little stone musical instruments. Now, the rest of these things are things that either I don't want to trade, or they're things that just aren't particularly valuable, so the fact that they're paying more for them doesn't really matter. So drinks, cheese, meat, they're not worth much to begin with. So the question then becomes, since they're not worth much, do you really care that it's 125% of 2? No, not really. Windows are made from large gems, basically. They're a little harder to come by. They're not really worth making for sale. Ammunition, I don't export ammunition. I import ammunition. I need as much ammunition as I can get, because we're going to be shooting goblin holes all day long. We're going to have a civilian military where everybody's equipped with a crossbow and everybody carries bolts, and the first time they see a thief, 27 bolts come out of nowhere, and that dude is a pincushion. Ammunition, we will never have enough ammunition, so I'm never going to export that. Water skins, not particularly valuable, consumes the leather that I'm going to need to make cloaks. Cloth, I'm going to import cloth. The fact that they're paying twice, that's fantastic, but not for me, because I import cloth as much as I can get. Because I'm going to need bags, I'm going to need ropes, I'm going to need clothing, I'm going to put cloth decals on things. I'll never get enough cloth. The reason we use rope reeds for our cloth is because you can grow 4 seasons of it, so I'm going to grow, 2 of these farm plots are going to be devoted exclusively to rope reeds, full-time, 25 tiles a farm plot, 50 tiles a farm plot, 4 seasons in a row, and I'm still probably going to burn through the cloth faster than I can make it. Now, you don't have to. If you're just making clothing out of it, I can get by easily on just one of those. But I can always convert the clothing, or mark the clothing for sale, so... Alright, our fishing shack is almost ready. Now's a good time to talk about a particular trick forcing dwarves to stand on one side of a construction. We're going to build this last wall right here. Now, dwarves have an order to where they like to stand when they're building a construction. And the order is west, east, north, south. In order. So they'll stand on the first one of those available. So first he'll try to stand to the left, but there's a wall there. Then he'll try to stand to the right, there's a wall there. And then he'll try to stand above it, and there's no wall there, so he'll stand there and build that wall. And then the problem is, there's no way back across the river for the guy, because I didn't want him to stand on the north side of that. And the way you get around having a dwarf stand in the wrong place when building a construction is you put a construction where you don't want him to stand. So we're going to build this. We're going to tell it we need 2 dolomite blocks, even though we're really not going to use 1. And we're going to suspend the northern construction because we don't actually want it to be built. And what will happen is our dwarf will come along and go, oh, well, I want to stand west. No. I want to stand east. No. I want to stand north. No. Oh, hey, look, I can stand here to the south. And he'll stand right where that X is and build that wall. And once he's done, we'll cancel this construction completely, and we'll have our dwarf safe on this side of the river with everything taken care of. Now you might be asking, well, what's this ramp for? Well, there's a good answer for that. I want this to be a fisherman's shack, not a fisherman's barricade. So we've got to build a floor on the upper area to cover that section. So what's going to happen here is our dwarves are going to build this interior wall, that section of floor. They're going to build a section of floor on the upper floor that basically is a ceiling over that empty area in the middle. They'll build a wall in that space there, which will become a floor. We're going to have to build a wall here to wall that in. So this wall here on this level will become a floor on the upper floor. And then we'll dig this as a down staircase right here. And this shack will be completely walled in and safe. Dwarves can sometimes dodge on top of walls. I have seen dwarves get on walls where I could not figure out how they got up there. Theoretically, they can do things like remove the stairs behind themselves and strand themselves. I think sometimes the game gets confused about where to put a dwarf, and they'll stand in a place. It will teleport them effectively someplace. But I can't replicate the behavior often enough to make it understandable where it's coming from. Now, as you can see, they're going to go back and they're going to build that floor in, and that's going to be all walled in there. We need to go ahead and get this staircase dug out and finish off the last piece of this shack. I'm not sure the case you're talking about, RSGM. Yeah, sometimes the dwarves will stand on it. There's actually a bug I've seen in this version. Normally a dwarf will stand on the construction he's trying to build, and he'll realize that he's the one blocking it, and he'll step off and then finish. Sometimes, even when there's a clear place for him to stand, dwarves in this current version will occasionally stand on the spot they're trying to build, and they won't get off. And they'll cancel the construction, and you'll unsuspend it, and they'll go stand on it again, and they'll cancel the construction, and you go back and you unsuspend it again, and they'll cancel the construction, and they'll keep doing it forever. And what I've found is, if the dwarf is standing on the spot he's trying to build on, and he won't do otherwise, that block, that stone, that log, is effectively cursed. And I don't mean to be silly about this, I don't want it to sound like a joke, but you can try to build over and over again with that particular item in that particular spot, and it will never happen. However, cancel the construction completely, start a new construction, use a different item, the dwarf will come along, drop an item, step off his thing, and he'll build it just like nothing happened. It's something about the way that the item is being used Something is getting bugged in the dwarf pathfinding. Something is getting bugged in the construction routine. I don't know. But there is definitely a bug where I've seen dwarves refuse repeatedly to finish a construction because they're standing on it, and yet you pick a different item and everything goes clean the first time every time. Yeah, I mean, I really wish that I could reproduce that bug reliably, because then maybe I could point to a save game where it was occurring and saying, this is what I'm doing to cause it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, and Toady would actually get that problem solved. But frankly, I don't know that that's going to be an easy bug to track down. It doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, boy, is it annoying. All right, now our fisherman's shack is up, walled in, floored over. There's no way into that interior space except from the staircase leading into our fortress. At this point, we're ready to actually build the shack. And somebody asked earlier, well, how is this a fisherman's shack? You've got a floor there and nobody can fish through it. And the answer is no, they can't. So the reason we did the floor was to give us a spot to build the walls off of initially. And once the walls are up, they effectively support themselves. So at this point, I can remove this chunk of floor right here and replace it with a grate and not have to worry about supporting that section of floor. Indeed, I can actually, if I look below this, there's actually two sections of floor I can remove, and we can build grates in both of them, and the grates will be supported by the walls on either side, and we don't have to worry about a collapse or the failure of the grates to support themselves. Remember, grates don't support themselves. They are buildings, not constructions. Only constructions provide support. He'll remove that stone. If we're real lucky, he'll actually keep it. If we're not lucky, he'll drop it in the hole. Oh well. Dwarf comes along, dwarf drops gate, fisherman's shack is done at that point. I don't have to do anything else except set up the fishing zone. Be very cautious about fishing in areas with necromancers. Mussel shells can be resurrected, and they will swarm your dwarves and kill them with exhaustion. And check it out. Rope reeds, sunberries, whipvines. We are in business. We will brew all of the remaining stuff we've got left. And let's see, do we have rock nuts? Well, I think we need to see if we can process some of those rock nut or those quarry bushes down into leaves next time. When we do this next time, now that we've got fishing up and running, I'll get a fishing industry set up. We'll get our wells linked up. In fact, let's do that right now before we forget. If they're smart, Urist McMiner will come along and do this properly by not standing on it, and they won't try to walk downstairs. If they're not smart, they'll walk downstairs into the aqueduct's intake, promptly become trapped by the water, try to escape by moving further into the aqueduct, and there's a grate at the far end where they will drown. And yes, I've had it. Alright, and our aqueduct is now connected. Water is flowing in, down to the bottom, through that staircase, down into the lower level, back up through the grate, and into our pressure-regulated wells. The water will flood up through the well all the way to the top floor, but no higher because of the pressure regulator. This effectively keeps our water supply vermin-free by virtue of the grate, with an infinite supply that does not flood by virtue of the pressure regulator and the water or in the well it is connected to. Now, there are some things you need to be aware of with this. You can cause a problem where you flood your wells later if you were to do something silly like, oh, I don't know, dam the river. That changes how the pressure works, and you can get situations where your well will flood. But I'm not planning to dam the river, frankly, and that's infinite water for me right where I want it. Well, let's go ahead and get our fishing zone up now before I forget. And in addition to the fishing zone, we need to set the activity zone order where we zone only fish. So I only allow my fishermen to fish in the safe fisherman's shack I have provided for them. Nowhere else. Even though we don't have our wells up and running yet, this is actually where our water is going to come from, so this is our water zone. And as with the fishing, if you're drinking from my well. I don't want you running out to the river, I don't want you running out to the murky pond. We're going right there. Alright, now I've got our wells connected up. We still don't have a damn dining room. That's got to get fixed. Okay. So I'm going to make a note to myself here. I've got a few things we've got to do in our next episode before I forget. Let me get a pen and paper and we'll take down notes. Okay, forget the pen and paper. We'll cobble them together like in Notepad. Alright, I think that's everything I could think of off the top of my head. Oh, no, I forgot one thing. Alright. I think that's got us a nice list for next time. I'm probably going to pick up tomorrow, guys. I won't promise to do it early. I'll do my best to post an announcement in the Reddit thread. If you haven't already, you might want to mark in whatever way you can the Twitch page so that you're notified when I come back. Call it 10, 11 o'clock Eastern tomorrow morning. I'm going to sit down and we're going to pick up where I left off. But as of right now, it's been 6.5 hours, and that's a really long session. Okay, and the last thing, I've already got a hospital set up. I just don't have private bedrooms. To be honest, private bedrooms comes well after a dining room in the scale of things. In terms of resource devotion, uh, personally, I've found a dining room to be the single most contributing factor to a dwarf's happiness. You get a nice dining room, properly smooth, nice tables, nice chairs, all together. That goes legendary. You could have a dwarf's kids rain out of the sky in little giblets, and that dwarf is going to eat his fantastic meal, drink his fantastic booze, and party down in the dining room, and never bat an eyelash. Um, Without a doubt, the dining room is the core of where your happiness comes from. Now, that's not to say you don't want to get bedrooms. Obviously, this dormitory I've got running right now is not big enough to support 200 dwarves. It's also my hospital, so if I have dwarves sleeping in there, then they're not sleeping in there. Then there's no room for the wounded to be cared for. Obviously, that's not a good way to go. But temporarily speaking, I'm better off to get the dining room up first and the bedrooms second than the other way around. If you guys have any questions before I go, now's the time to ask. Anything you can think of, questions about format, what we're doing next time, what we're doing this time, what we're doing 3 times from now, how I would do something that you've wanted to try but you haven't ever gotten around to. If you've got questions, ask them. If you think of the question after we're done for this evening, the easiest way to get an answer is to leave it in the most recent advertisement thread out there on Reddit. For those of you who are just joining us here towards the tail end and haven't seen the advertisements out there, what I'm doing is I go out into the Dwarf Fortress subreddit. That's www.reddit.com/r/Dwarf Fortress, and you'll be able to find the Dwarf Fortress tutorial stream advertisements out there. Dated with whatever date the actual tutorial stream is going to be. This one from today is from the 16th. If you've got a question, don't hesitate to leave it directly in one of those threads. I'm more than happy to answer it. And if you would prefer to get an answer quickly and not wait on me personally to answer it, just post it in the Dwarf Fortress subreddit and somebody will come along and answer it. We love helping the new folks out learn the game. I post my stuff in Dwarf Fortress. I am not posting in our gaming. If someone wants to learn Dwarf Fortress, they're going to go to the Dwarf Fortress subreddit or Debate 12. They're not going to be visiting the gaming, and I'm not looking to cross-post. It's not about how much karma I earn. It really is about helping the new players learn the game. I don't see any questions posted in the stream chat, folks, and at 6 hours and 40 minutes in, I'm hanging it up for the night. So one of the questions I answer, or that we saw answered recently in the Dwarf Fortress subreddit is, hey, all my progress, it disappeared. Well, no. You've got to make sure that when you leave the game, you're hitting save. You're not closing Dwarf Fortress out. You're not hitting abandon. You've got to save the game, and that's done by hitting escape and hitting the save key. If you abandon, your fortress will be discarded, but its structures will remain so that you can reclaim it later or visit it as an adventurer. While neat, that's not really where you want to go. If you're planning to continue your fortress, it's the save game you really want. Once that's done, you can quit Dwarf Fortress and hang it up for the evening. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night.